Hello, everyone. Welcome to the York celebration for International Women's Day. It's a pleasure to have all of you here, and it's a special pleasure to have our special guest today, Olivia Chow. I know we're all very excited to hear Olivia talk about her recent book. I wanted to say just a few words about International Women's Day. It is a day that is very dear to my heart and dear to many people's hearts. It's a day that developed a number of years ago. In fact, we were just earlier thinking, when was the first International Women's Day at York University? And it's been so long that it's not in any of our memories. But it's something that has been put aside for us to come together and think about both the challenges as well as the successes of feminist organizing. It's a day for us to think about what are the challenges ahead, to strategize about how we address these challenges. And it's also a day for us to celebrate our success, to meet old friends who we've been having dialogues and working together for many, many years. It's a day in which people celebrate all over the world. I've had the pleasure of celebrating International Women's Day in some different national contexts. So on Saturday, I know in Delhi, 300,000 women will be at the IWD parade there, again, doing the same things that we are going to be doing today in this room. In Beijing, there's a large International Women's Day. So it's also a time for us to think about how we fit in to this very transnational, global process of thinking about women's rights and the contradictions of our positionalities. So it's a day that I think is one of reflection and action. So it's my honor to welcome all of you to the beginnings of the International Women's Day ceremonies at York University. We're going to start with a dedication and traditional welcome from Laureen Waters, an Aboriginal elder who's also the elder at York University.
Tansei, Anin, Iskinikamun, Natisi Nakasun, Maingan Nodem, Big River, Saskatchewan, Adunjaba. I've been given tobacco to do this opening today, and I've brought with me sage, which we normally light when we're doing prayers and for cleansing and smudging. However, in today's environment, the location that we're in, we may set off some fire alarms and we don't want to have everybody running outside. So we're going to do things a little different. This is a way that I was taught to use these medicines which were given to us from the Creator to help us with our journeys. And this is a woman's medicine. So what better medicine to bring today to open off this International Women's Day? I'm going to ask Josephine to come down and take this smudge around, this sage, and offer it to each and every one of you to take a piece into your hands. And while you have that piece, smell that fragrance that it gives off. It's a very comforting and cleansing medicine that we use. And this is an old way to which this medicine was used in times when we couldn't light it, whether it be because it was raining way too hard or we were in areas where it would become just overly smoky because we love to cleanse ourselves with it. We love the smell of it, so we tend to light sometimes too much of it. So I'm going to pass this around and offer it to each and every one of you so that we can hear in a good way today. We normally take this medicine and brush it over our heads so that we can have our minds clear and free of any distractions that we may have accumulated over the last 24 hours in the last period that we've been walking here on our Mother the Earth. We also take it to our eyes that we can see well and we can see things in a good way. We also bring it to our ears so that we can hear the best things that we may need to carry out the functions in our life. We then take it to our mouth so that we can speak good words to each other, so that we can be kind and gentle. We can treat each other with respect. We can treat everyone with dignity, the same way that we would like to be treated. We then usually take the smoke and put it onto our heart so that we can do things in a good way throughout the rest of our life. And then we brush the smoke over our body to cleanse ourselves, to keep us in a nice, safe, neutral space. So unfortunately, we can't do that particular function of the sage today, but we can hold it, and we can smell it, and we can let this medicine do its work, rather than just leaving it on a table and dishonoring the medicine by not having it do the purpose that it's meant to do, which is to work with us. So Josephine, if you could pass this around. So I'd like to ask those ancestors that are gone on before us, all those helpers that sit in another realm from where we are, to come and be with us today so that we can celebrate this very important day where we can acknowledge women. In many Aboriginal traditions, we're taught to not to be superior. We're taught to be equal and to have that balance in life. And unfortunately, in a lot of societies and a lot of cultures and a lot of times, that balance hasn't been quite equal. Women have kind of gotten the short end of the stick. In Aboriginal culture, most nations hold that woman in a very high position. She is the matriarch of the family. She is the one that holds those foundations together. Women are the ones who bear life. They have been given that gift from the Creator to carry that child and to birth that child and bring new life to creation. So in Aboriginal traditions, women are honored and well respected. Unfortunately, that's not the way throughout, some other parts of the world, and here alone in Canada as well, in some people's idealisms. So I'd like to pray today to have that change in each and every one of us, to ask those men to help support the women. They've been carrying these burdens for a long time. They're tired and weary, and they shouldn't have to fight so hard. So we're asking that equal balance come back into play, and that we don't want to take over anybody's position. As women, we're not there to take over positions. We're just there to be treated equally and fair. And that's what we seek in life, not to be under someone or over someone, but to walk beside them. And if we can walk beside each other in life, we can live our life in a very good way. We can be supported by each other, nurtured. When one of us is not feeling so great, the other one can pick up the slack, and the same would work in return when the other one isn't feeling well. So we're asking that the idealisms that are out there where women are to be beneath men, that those ideas change, and that today's society will allow women to take their rightful places to be equal amongst everyone walking on our Mother the Earth. So that I ask today from each and every one of you, that you look at this concept that I've just expressed to you and see where it sits with you. Every one of us has come from a mother, so we all have that same common point to us, that we all have a mother, we were all birthed, and we all usually respect our mother. So we should be carrying that idealism throughout our walk in life, to be respectful and to treat each other with kindness and love and dignity. And I'd like to thank York for having me here today, and the people of Mississaugas and Haudenosaunee, on whose territory we now stand. I'd like to give them credit and acknowledge that today. And acknowledge Olivia for coming to spend her time with us today. Being a very busy person, she's taken this time to come and sit with us. So myself, I really appreciate that. And I'm sure we'll hear lots of very good and interesting points from her today. And may we all treat each other with kind and love and respect and humility, and treat each other equal. And thank you very much for your time. Hi, hi.
Thank you, Ms. Waters, for such eloquent words and for reflecting on some of the teachings that Indigenous thought can give us. So thank you very much. Next, I'd like to welcome the Provost and Vice President Academic of York University, Professor Rhonda Lenton.
I just actually like to extend my own thanks to Lauren Waters. I found, as I always do, such a calming experience when we have an opening by one of our Aboriginal members. So I'm very pleased to have been invited to make some opening remarks today for the York University International Women's Day ceremonies, and also to welcome all of you on behalf of the university. This is a particularly important day for us here at York and internationally, as we recognize the accomplishments of women, we acknowledge the advancement of women's rights, and we express our determination to continue to address the issues around women's rights. First, please let me warmly welcome our distinguished guest speaker to York University today, Oliva Chow, Member of Parliament for Trinity Spadina, and herself an example of women's struggles and their bold determination to succeed. We are very pleased and honored that you are with us today. Thank you so much to help us mark our International Women's Day celebration. Although International Women's Day, also known as the United Nations Day for Women's Rights and International Peace, is usually marked on March 8th each year, we prefer to hold our ceremonies here at York during the week so that we can ensure that all of our students, our faculty, and our staff can fully participate. A defining feature and challenge for International Women's Day is that you're tempted on the one hand to focus on the recognition, the acknowledgement of all that we have achieved, and to celebrate those successes. At the same time, though, we cannot ignore, and we must remember to pay attention to the incredible unevenness of those rights around the world. And even in Canada, full equality for women has yet to be achieved. To give just a brief history of this day, the UN started celebrating International Women's Day in 1975 as part of International Women's Year. However, observances designated as Women's Days were held much earlier in the 1900s in North America and Europe, emerging from the activities of the labor movement at the turn of the century. This was a period of tremendous economic, social, and cultural change, and that facilitated and made space for taking a look at women's rights, the suffrage movement, the peace movement. In 1977, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution to commemorate United Nations Day for Women's Rights and International Peace. There were two important elements to that resolution. First, to recognize the fact that securing peace and social progress and the full enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms requires the active participation, equality, and development of women. Second, to acknowledge the contribution of women in the strengthening of international peace and security. International Women's Day is now celebrated around the world, and the York community should definitely join in recognizing our many contributions to the progress that has been made. At the same time, coming together in this way is also an opportunity for reflection on the work that remains and highlighting the continuing challenges and for mobilizing next steps. This year's UN International Women's Day theme is Equality for Women is Progress for All. This is an appropriate theme for this year's ceremonies around the globe, as greater efforts are undertaken internationally as well as at national and local levels to secure women's rights. The UN will be holding its ceremonies tomorrow, just before the commencement of the 58th session of the Commission on the Status of Women at UN headquarters in New York City. The modern international human rights system that has developed since the establishment of the UN in 1945, I actually know that year, but my eyes blurred just for a moment there. It's quite remarkable. And women's rights are an incredibly important branch of those human rights. It's important to point out that among the 7 core human rights instruments, one deals specifically with women's rights: the 1979 Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. It requires countries signatory to the convention to take all appropriate steps to end violence and charges a monitoring committee to deal with cases where rights have not been upheld. There is also an international Bill of Rights which encompasses women's rights. In Canada, the rights of women are firmly enshrined in our 1982 Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which asserts equality under the law and affirmative action for disadvantaged individuals or groups. Here at York University, we are very proud of our long-standing record as an open, tolerant, and inclusive university that is committed to social justice in our actions and our perspectives. York has also been a pioneer in the advancement of women's studies as a disciplinary field of research and study, offering undergraduate and graduate degrees and certificate programs for many years, and leading research on women's issues. Cutting-edge research relevant to women's issues take place across the entire university, including 2 organized research units, the Center for Feminist Research and the Institute for Feminist Legal Studies at Osgoode Hall Law School, both of which, together with the Center for Human Rights, are represented here today as co-sponsors of our International Women's Day ceremony. It is noteworthy that according to York's fact book, about 58% of our undergraduate students and 56% of our graduate students are female. We look forward to York's continuing contributions to cutting-edge research on women's rights and to the education of the next generation of educators, policymakers, activists, and citizens, both female and male. York is very pleased to host these International Women's Day ceremonies, one of many such events that will be held in the Greater Toronto Area, across the country, and internationally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Provost Lenton. That was wonderfully informative of the history of IWD and the kind of challenges that we face and the successes that we've been part of, particularly at York University. So thank you very much. It's my pleasure now to introduce Professor Ananya Mukherjee-Reed, who is the chairperson of the Department of Political Science in the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies at York University. Professor Mukherjee is going to say a few words to introduce Oliva Chow.
So how does one introduce someone like Oliva Chow? I would prefer just 3 simple words: Mayor of Toronto. But I guess we have to wait. In the meantime, let me highlight just a few of her innumerable achievements. Through a political career spanning 3 decades, Oliva Chow has been one of Toronto's most passionate and effective advocates, on the school board, at the City Hall, in Parliament, and on the national stage. In 1991, she ran for the Metro Toronto Council and was the first Asian woman elected to citywide office in Toronto. Olivia was re-elected as city councillor 5 times and helped balance the budget 9 times while helping to institute progressive measures and policies. First elected to the parliament from Trinity Spadina in 2006 and re-elected twice, Olivia has served as NDP's advocate for children and critic for immigration and is currently the official opposition transport critic. And this is perhaps the least known part of her life. She married Jack Layton in 1988, and together they forged one of Canada's most remarkable political partnerships, sharing a passion for life and a commitment to change. And I cannot stop myself from saying that Jack Layton is an alum now of our department. We are very proud of that. And of all the little highlights of her career that I referred to, you will find it in her book in a very put together in a beautiful way where the personal and the political merge. Sometimes they confront each other and give you a picture of a very interesting journey of an immigrant woman of Asian descent and now a Canadian. So welcome, Olivia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Lorraine Waters, thank you so much for your blessing and for reminding us about equality, humility, and love and caring for each other so we can be kind and supportive. Thank you for that blessing. And Nina, old friend, my neighbor at Hydro Block way back. Okay, long time ago, 80s, yeah. And it's absolutely wonderful to be at York University. Great honor to be here because you folks have been pushing for progress and equality for women for so long. In fact, you've had IWD events for almost 20 years plus, more than 20 years, a long time. And so it's a wonderful sight to see all of you here joining together to celebrate International Women's Day. It is inspiring to see so many dedicated people celebrating the achievements of women and seeking change to ensure equality. You inspire me. I'm inspired by young people, your energy, your optimism. I am inspired those who seek to educate women and by women who move forward with their education. And I also am inspired by women and men who gets it, come together to work for equality because we are together. So we're here today to celebrate and dedicate. Celebrate and dedicate, celebrate achievements, and dedicate ourselves to make change happen. I say to the young women who are students here, and I see quite a few of you, that you will have many opportunities to inspire. And some of you, through your work, is already inspiring others. This great university is providing you many of those opportunities. And by your ability to celebrate and dedicate your interest and commitment to change, you have already inspired me because I know the kind of work York University students and faculty have been doing. It's actually quite legendary for a long time. You gave me confidence that we will make further progress in the future. And that's why I do what I do. And we have so much more we can do together. And there are so much more we must do together. That's why I am so honored to be here today. Now, I didn't expect to be here when I was 13-year-old immigrant who arrived with my parents from Hong Kong. like many immigrants coming to this country, we faced pretty difficult times, many challenges. And my parents made enormous sacrifices coming to Canada. My dad was a school superintendent, and he spoke fluent English. Apparently he loved Shakespeare. That's how Twelfth Night, Olivia. Yeah, Hong Kong kid, Olivia. And my mom was a school teacher, elementary school. But they were not able to find a job using their skills. That's a very typical immigrant stories. My dad tried delivering Chinese food, tried driving taxi, nothing worked. He had a certificate, teaching certificate, but probably cultural difference. I don't know what it was. He suffered a mental breakdown, so it was hard. He never was able to work. My mom went to work in the laundry department in a hotel, was a maid, and we worked hard. Times were pretty hard with one income, and I worked part-time jobs, so I learned how to save every penny to make ends meet, save for rainy days. So my parents would have never imagined that I can be here, talking to you about a book. And it's, in my wildest imagination, when I was a little kid in Hong Kong, I can imagine reading a book, never mind about writing a book, because I failed grade 3. Now, it takes some talent to fail grade 3. You have to admit, it's true, no? I bet you none of you managed to fail grade 3. So it's hard. It's really hard to imagine that I could live in the other side of the world, study philosophy, religion, art, got a degree, became an artist, became an activist, follow some of your footsteps. Some of you, we've done work together. Became a city councillor, a school trustee, and a member of parliament. So it's hard to imagine it back then, because when we immigrated in 1970, it was hard to imagine any woman in those political roles, because there were so few women in politics at any level, anywhere. Times have changed, we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. And that's really what my journey is all about. It's a journey that brought me here today. Writing this book was important to me, and it helped me move forward in my own life. Some people ask me, maybe I'll let you ask the question of why I wrote the book, because I know we have about half an hour for question and answer. Okay, I'll get there later. But what this book have done is give me an opportunity to reach out and explain things in some depth. And sometimes it's hard to do in a short speech. So it allowed me the opportunity to communicate to a bigger audience about things and people that matters to me, that inspire me. And it gave me an opportunity to talk about what matters to me most. Some people ask me, what is this book about? It's about immigration. It's about overcoming adversity. It's about public service, how when we come together we have an opportunity to make a difference, how blessed I had been to be able to make a difference. It's about love. Yes, there's a love story in there. A bit sappy love story, love letters and all that. And dealing with loss and, trying to look inside us, how do we find the strength to keep going when times are really tough? And an opportunity to talk about things that matter to me, about how we need to put kids in the center of our city and our country. So when I became a City of Toronto advocate, a children and youth advocate, the kind of work that I've done, whether I was a school board or later on as an MP, it's all about making child poverty history. It's about delivering good child care so parents can work and kids can grow up properly. It's about creating opportunities, job opportunities for newcomers, for young people, good jobs. It's about moving people faster, whether through bus, streetcars, LRTs, or subways, bike plans, you know. So by pushing a national transit strategy, which actually I had a speech at York University about national transit strategy 2 years ago. And add to all of that, violence against women is a key issue, because earlier on, when I told you that my dad had a mental breakdown, he also ended up physically violent against my mom. So there was quite a bit of domestic violence in the home, and I was the only kid. So it was very difficult trying to figure out what to do with my dad, who was ill, but was also violent. And how do I protect my mom, new immigrant kid, in a new country with no relatives? And it was difficult. So by telling my stories, my parents' stories, I've been able to connect with people in some ways and help, because my experience helped shape my goal and my public service. And over 30 years in public life, I tried to make a difference so that other families would experience a better life. And we talked about equality, violence, but we talked about poverty. In some ways, poverty has a face that looks like us, because we know that more women live in poverty than men. And in Toronto, a lot more visible minorities live in poverty in terms of percentage. And I thought what I could do is read some passages in my book, and I'm going to read a passage that had been very difficult to write. It talks about violence, and just in this particular chapter, I talked about my experience helping with Hospital Crisis Helpline when I was a university student. This is the East York Hospital Crisis Intervention Unit. I was a volunteer. That was a suicide helpline, and I wrote about developing an empathy and communicating with people in despair, trying to give them hope and to give life another chance. They've attempted suicide, but thank God they're okay. But you know, I talked to them. So I thought, when I was looking through the book, what would be a section that is relevant to International Women's Day? So I picked page 38. Now, normally, I would read from the book. However, small print. Those of you that when they said that I came to Canada when I was 1970, and then I was 13, you're going to immediately, okay, math, how old am I? Figure out how old I am. Yes, I'm old. That's why I printed it out in bold type, double-lined, big font, so I can read it properly. Okay? So anyway, this is a section about violence and about empowerment. While I was able to empathize with others and dispense advice, I could have been a candidate for the helpline myself. At that time in my life, I was drawn to the wrong kind of men. It's before Jack, okay? That was in the book. For a time, when I was 17, I lived, as I mentioned, with a man whose only sin was to lack ambition, a sin that led me to end the relationship. After that, I began courting disaster. The next man was a bruiser, literally. He was much bigger than me, a former Marine with a black belt in karate. And twice, he came close to killing me. I was choked and punched in the face. And yet the first time he beat me, I made excuses for him. And the second time, he was drunk, and he did apologize after all. It took me more than a year of black eyes and bruises to leave that relationship, and I never sought help or called the police. The next man seemed gentle enough, but when we ended the relationship, he was enraged, and he lashed out physically. He hit me, but this time, I was the stronger one. I hit him back, and I called the police, but I never did lay charges. The pattern is so familiar. Regardless of background, ethnic origin, or education level, male against female violence is rooted in a desire to possess, dominate, and control. Women in every culture are so often encouraged or encourage themselves to believe, just love him a little bit more and all will be fine. Just don't provoke. Be more obedient or do a better job of taking care of him and all will be well. This imbalance of power causes untold suffering and even death. How could I have been drawn to these men? And why did I stay with them? Why did I put my life at risk? I had been a crisis counselor. I had seen the patterns, and I had seen how children who had witnessed violence, and I certainly was one of them, had themselves become involved in abusive relationships. Yet I, like so many others, believed, love him enough and he will change. I may have subconsciously thought that physical violence is normal, or perhaps I lacked the self-confidence to leave these abusers sooner. Perhaps I felt my mother has suffered abuse because she herself was somehow to blame. Perhaps I felt that if she had been more submissive, my father would have not abused her, and we would have enjoyed harmony in our home. Years later, and after much reading and research, I taught several courses part-time in George Brown's College Assaulted Women's and Children's Counseling Advocate Program, aimed in part at survivors of abuse who had committed their lives to helping others. I worked with students to help them understand the underlying causes of male violence, and I taught them how to build confidence, develop power, and find solutions for themselves and for the people they might get involved with in the future. As well, I worked with them to explore why women who endure racial biases are also the most poverty-stricken in our city, in our country, and around the globe. I assigned books that develop intellectual understanding along with films, such as Spike Lee's She Got to Have It, yes, to explore rape, dominance, and ingrained double standard that governs the sexual behavior of young men and women. At the same time, I taught a course in feminist political action and community development. I would ask students to identify one area that they wanted to change in their lives. And then most often they talked about ending cycle of violence and poverty, etc. As I taught, I also learned to appreciate the vital importance of achieving true equality for women in the political sphere. Understanding weaknesses becomes a source of strength. The key is to empower, to turn helplessness and despair into a quest for political action. I am closing my book. On that note, I hope today that it gets a sense of engagement you have, to inspire all of you to get engaged and take action, to encourage young women, students, all of you to become involved, to consider a career in politics, because we need you. We absolutely need you. We need more women in leadership roles and in politics. Diversity makes us stronger. That's not just a slogan. but half the talent pool is missing when you leave out 52% of the population. That's obvious, right? In politics, in governance, there's a direct correlations between more women in office and more focus on health and education, environment, childcare, and less focus on armaments, war, prisons. More women in politics, in fact, means less corruption. That was according to a World Bank study a decade ago or so. That's interesting. Okay? We can do a lecture completely on that one, right? Later, not now. There are, when I got started in politics until quite recently, things like environment and healthcare and childcare and so on was dismissed as nothing but women's issue. Okay? And somehow that economic issues and business issues are the serious stuff. And those are not necessary so, which is astounding. So it took some leadership by women to start turning things around. So let me give you a few examples. Flora MacDonald, Canada's first female foreign minister, convinced the government in the 1970s to let in Vietnamese boat people, making Canada a leader in the world. That's how I got involved in politics. 1979, 1980, the boat people. Barbara McDougall, progressive conservative cabinet minister in Mulroney government, was Minister of State for Finance and got through employment equity for the banks. What gets measured, get managed. And that instituted a whole lot of focus on the workplace. 25 years later, we see the results. It's good for business, right? See, the banks are doing quite well. Obviously, employment equity works for them. Francis Lankin was a New Democrat cabinet minister in Ontario in the 90s and ensured pay equity in the provincial civil service and the provincial support for childcare. Anne McCollum was a Liberal Minister of Justice and quietly pushed through many appointments of female judges, affirmative action, and get some gender balance on the courts. Pauline Manoir was a cabinet minister in Quebec and introduced the, at that time, $5 a day in childcare, right? I think she was the first ever in Canada to give birth while in office, maybe, perhaps. And all these advances has been good for governance, good for business, good for professions, good for the economy, good for women, and good for everyone. Okay? Yes, of course it is. So by shaping public policy as women, we can help achieve equality. By helping to achieve equality, we can help to shape policy. Now, achieving equality in the political arena is the tricky part. There are only 76 women now in the House of Commons. The total is 308, by the way, if you're wondering. Less than 1 in 4 MPs, and that's a record high. Go figure, huh? 23%. There are only 14 women on Toronto City Council, less than 1 in 3, and that's a record high too. 15 years ago, I joined a group of like-minded women, and we started a group called Equal Voice to gain equality in politics. We have put a huge amount of effort into this, but we still have very far to go. So I'm looking at some of you. Okay? So think about this, huh? We haven't seen enough progress. Now, yes, women do carry extra burden. There are many reasons I can go on, but I think I'll leave some time for questions. I'm going to skip a few pages of all the barriers facing women. You don't need me to tell you what it is. I'm going to cast that aside. But I do want you to know that just in the past 2 generations, we have seen significant entry into the workforce, gains in educational background, employment equity. So it's time for politics to catch up, don't you think? Yeah? It's time for politicians to catch up. And change will happen now that we have highly visible female leadership in 5 biggest provinces. That's good. And I have every confidence in the future because I know those of you that are out there will continue to inspire us and make a difference. So I'm going to close with another excerpt in my journey. Picture me opening the book again. This one is in page 311. Bold typed again. Someone once asked me how I keep so positive and hopeful. In almost 30 years in office, I have recorded my share of wins and defeats. Yep. I made some mistakes and I made some progress. And then I look around and I see there's still child poverty. There's still violence against women. There's still pollution and gridlock, injustice, inequality, bigotry, war, and ignorance, disease and despair around our country, around our world. Some might ask, what's the point? What difference would we make? But then I look ahead and I imagine how great things could be in another 3 decades, not how terrible. If you can imagine something, you can achieve it. One wish leads to another. That's not wishful thinking, that's pragmatic. That changes the world. And that's why politics, which can be so frustrating, can also be so rewarding. Closing the book. We still have a long way to go in Canada to achieve equality, to attract more women in politics. So get involved, make a difference, define what changes you want to make, dedicate yourself in making a difference, consider getting involved, and if the elected representatives won't listen to you in what changes you want, help elect someone who will. Huh? Yeah, there might be 2 elections coming up. Elect someone who will listen, who does get it. And then in the long term, consider this. Consider running for office yourself and getting things done. Why not you? We need you there. We don't need the old and tired. Okay, we need young and energetic. Okay, not so young, but okay. Still have the energy. Our government needs you. Our country needs you. Our city needs you. Our world needs you. So, and that's the way to inspire change and gain equality. And last night, another Olivia Chandler, you're a budding journalist. She writes for your local paper here at York U. Asked me if there is one line on advice, what would it be for young people? I said, well, yeah, if they want to involved in politics, define what you want to do, what kind of changes, check things out, get involved. And then the line, I'm going to quote my late husband, don't ever let them tell you it can't be done. So go for it. Thank you so much.
You have about 25 minutes, including the book signing.
Okay, good. Okay. So I have time for lots of questions. I think there's a mic there. Yeah, there's a mic over there. Oh, sorry. You were going to say that. Okay. Lots of questions you might have. You could grab a book if you feel like it. Thank you so much. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Over here, and I'll go on this side. Yeah, go ahead. Shout out louder. Unless you're loud enough.
Oh, I can be loud enough now.
Oh, but are you recording? No, this is York University recording? Okay, sorry.
Hi. Okay, it's on. I'm just wondering when you're going to announce your bid for the Mayor of Toronto race.
It's about the book.
Just putting it out there, no pressure.
No pressure. I thought one of the journalists was going to ask that question.
Oh, oops, sorry.
No. I love the city. I've been seriously considering. Thank you for that. And we do need a new mayor, no doubt about that too. And so soon, yes. But right now, I really do want to connect and maybe ask you, what kind of city would you like? What kind of country would you like? What are some of the things you want to change? Because being involved politically or making equality a big, celebrating equality is determining what kind of things you want to do first. So maybe you can give us some ideas. I see more questions. You're not shy. You know, when I first ran for a school trustee, English is my second language, right? I was so scared standing in front of 200 or 300 people, and I was going to pass out, but I overcame that. And yes?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
First of all, I want to extend my deepest condolences to you for your loss of Jack Layton. And from the bottom of my heart, he's a great man. What initiatives, if you are, as you are right now in politics, what initiatives are you doing to stop the bullying epidemic that's facing our young people?
Well, that's a very big question. How do we stop the bullying? There are many reasons for bullying. When I was a school trustee, I took a look at, in 1985, there was a young librarian who was killed. His name was Ken Seller. And he was killed in Hyde Park. He was gay bashed. And then I spoke to a lot of students in high school. And I discovered that a lot of gay, lesbian, youth, bi students were harassed, bullied, in school, in high school. So when I was a school trustee, I started an anti-homophobic curriculum. I had teachers trained or training teachers on how to deal with homophobia, and also putting a policy in place that discrimination based on sexual orientation should not be allowed. That's one component of it. So a lot of it is education, is learning, and some of it is also working with the parents, because kids tend to learn not just through friends. Yes, from friends. So sometimes it's families. A lot of it is counseling, is support, is role models, is supporting the kid who's bullied, whether it's cyberbullied or in the classroom, and a sense to give that kid a sense of power that he or she can make a change. So there are many aspects of it. A lot of it is support, counseling, guidance department, teachers, families, friends, and living in a community, a neighborhood that would not tolerate bullying. And to say that we can be kind, as Ms. Waters said, we can be kind to each other and be happy, and rather than trying to get our way. A lot of it also is teaching anger management, conflict resolutions, because young people need to learn those skills on how to de-escalate conflicts, because that is a skill also. So again, that is something that we can teach on how to de-escalate a situation of violence and stand up to the bully, because sometimes that's what it takes, someone that have the courage to stand up and say no. And also it's power and balance. It's a very long answer to a very complex question, and it's an area that we need to seriously consider.
Hello, my name is Roxanne. First of all, thank you again for your very inspirational speech. I'm a student here at York, a graduate student in public and international affairs, and my current research involves getting to know the Chinese Canadian community better. So I'd like to know, so I noticed a steady growth in Chinese Canadian involvement in national politics in Canada, and I'd like to know how it was for you as a Chinese Canadian to get involved into this stream of national politics. What kind of support did you get from your community, not only as a woman, but also as a Chinese Canadian?
Mm-hmm. Remember, my degree was in fine arts. I haven't taken one political science course. What are you doing talking about politics, Olivia, right? So I started volunteering for the crisis line because I want to make a difference. Part of it is my faith from the church that said, love your neighbor as yourself. You need to make a difference, right? So part of it is the faith. But normally when I read a newspaper back then, I would open up the entertainment section, read the comics and the entertainment, and not look at the A section. This is when I was much younger. And one day I noticed that there was a lot of boat people adrift in sea. They are Vietnamese refugees. And many of them were being lost in sea in refugees camp, in camps. And I attended a rally. To say that let's bring more Vietnamese refugees into this country, because Canada is a generous, rich, and vast land. We have the space. Why not have some refugees come and make their home here? So I attended a rally, and then some friends said, don't just go to a rally, you need to do more. I joined Operation Lifeline, which was to persuade the federal government to allow more refugees to come in. And I think, yes, it was Barbara McDougall, I think, or was it Flora McDonald? I think it was Flora McDonald that allowed refugees to come into, it was the Conservative actually at the time. That's how I thought, that's what happens when we get together to try to make a change on a government policy. We do have the power to make the change, and I started discovering politics. One thing led to another. Because my parents was an educator, I decided I have something to say about education. I got elected as a school trustee. But thank you for that question.
Thank you.
But start somewhere that you want, you want to make a difference. This gentleman.
I think it's not working, but my voice
It's
is loud
working.
enough. No problem. Talking of the refugees, I'm taking some courses and I'm working with the refugees. I wonder if you're still involved with the refugees and if there is anything that you can support those people who are supporting the refugees.
Absolutely. I used to be the immigration critic, and I'm a fundraiser for an organization called Center for Victims of Torture. I auction every year for many years. So nonprofit groups, they do a lot of good work, and they need a lot of support. So part of it is volunteers, but part of it is government support, financial support for our taxes. And another is really looking at a refugees policy, how we could make sure it's more compassionate and more supportive, especially to families. What I found in refugee settlement or counseling is that mental health issues are often not supported. And I found that I actually gathered all the different organizations that support newcomers and refugees across the city. I surveyed them. What help do you need most? What kind of service do you think is most in demand, needs to be expanded? And they said to me, mental health support, counseling. But yet, because counseling is provincial, whereas immigrant adaptation is federal, often there's not enough of a connection. So that's one area that really needs more support. But thank you for that question. Over there.
Hello. Thank you so much for sharing International Women's Day with us here at York. You are an amazingly strong woman, and thank you again. My question is, and my name is Jennifer, by the way, my question is, what words of advice or words of wisdom would you give to young women and women in general working in advocacy and in life?
Mm-hmm. Starts wherever you want to start. Don't take no for an answer. Know that when you come together, you have the power. And often advocacy can come in two forms. One is through publicity education, right? More in the air. But the second part that's equally as important is connecting with people, more on the ground. Having them understand that they too can have the power to make a difference and explore what that might be. Okay? Ask them to talk to whoever the elected representative, like depends on which level of government that you want to advocate for, and come together to go and see that elected representative. Okay? And also celebrate small victories. Often we forget to celebrate small victories, even if it is a tiny thing that, oh, a petition got tabled. You know, that's not big, but to celebrate small victories means that you can build on small ground. If not, it may not be fun, right? You need to make it fun, make it joyous, and see a little bit of difference. But sometimes some advocacy takes many years. I was involved in one that took at least 23 years. That finally, this is Chinese head tax redress and compensation. That took 23 years. Cracking down on immigration, crooked immigration consultant, that took 25 years, right, of work. So sometimes it takes a long time. So don't give up. Just keep going and just keep pushing and be committed. Have the passion, and you will make a difference. You probably already have been making a difference. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Maybe we could, okay, I can be 5 minutes late to my next event. Okay. Well, unless there's no other question. Okay. Oh, I have books. Okay, all right. Last two questions, and then I have books. Okay. This gentleman. Thank you for reminding me. Thanks. Okay.
Hi, Olivia. Thank you again for coming. I do a bit of volunteering for your provincial colleague, Rosario Marchese.
Okay.
And I was just wondering, you've been a trustee, a city councillor, a member of parliament. Did you ever consider running for provincial politics? And if you did, what's the issue that you would want to most see be put on the agenda?
Yeah. I tend to not look at one level or another level. So when I was a school trustee, at the tail end of 1990, and when I thought, oh, wait a second, when you call 911, if you can't speak English, you can't communicate. So I started a campaign to get 911 speaking 140 languages. We won after a bit of work. So I thought, oh, that's what city council is for, because it's policing, right? And I also got a student metro pass for high school students. So then I got, I'm interested in policing and public transit, so I got elected as a metro councillor. And then when I decided to run for federal office, it was because a lot of the child poverty is transfer of income, is taxation, national child care policies, and transfer. So those are a lot of federal issues. And immigration, I was very involved in immigration, so I went to run as an MP. So there needs to be something that I really want to change in the political sphere in the provincial area, then I would consider it. So far I haven't, because I've been involved in the federal scene more, like municipal and federal. So one of these days, if there is an area that I was just really passionate about, I might consider it. But right now, it's not in my area. But those of you that pay very high tuitions, those of you that think that needs better involvement, better investment in post-secondary education, that's very provincial. Okay? It's federal too, but it's also provincial. So consider that. You're young. Maybe you want to run.
Hi, Olivia. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'm so pleased to be a Trinity Spadina dweller as well.
Oh, okay.
My question, I was so lucky during my undergrad to take part in McGill's Women in House program, and through my participation in NEP McGill, some of my friends are now in Parliament, Milan Freeman and Charmaine Borg and Lauren Liu.
They all got elected.
They all got elected.
Oh,
and then
wow. See, this happens, huh?
And then I had to take over all the admin work. So I'm just wondering, for all the young women in the room here, what opportunities there are in Toronto to find that same sort of fellowship and support from women who are active in politics?
That's a very good question. When I was a city councillor, there was the Women's Caucus. I don't know whether they're still active or not. So women of all different political stripe, ideology, didn't matter. They came together. Actually, in the book, there's a story about the impact of the Women Caucus on the Jane Doe case. I don't have enough time to go into it, but there's an organization called Equal Voice. So recently, Equal Voice had a boot camp. It's a boot camp for women that wants to be involved politically. So they teach women on how to fundraise, how to make speeches, how to do media interviews, how to analyze or study a report, make speeches, etc. So I think Equal Voice is a good way to start. And perhaps some of the city councillors in Toronto can start up. Maybe there is one, I just don't know enough to know whether there is. And there would be wonderful mentorship program. I mentor students from McGill and from Ottawa U and in different universities in Ottawa when I'm back as an MP in Ottawa. So.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyway, thank you so much for allowing me to share some thoughts with you. Okay.
So just a couple more minutes, please. So I'd like to thank Olivia for sharing a very moving and personal story about both the importance of politics, but also how feminism is personal. And for final comments, I'd like to turn it over to Professor David Leighton Brown, who's a master of McLaughlin College and a professor in the Department of Politics.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be the token male here on International Women's Day. And I am also delighted to have the opportunity to thank our speaker today, Olivia Chow, twice. When it was first suggested to McLaughlin College and the other organizations that have co-sponsored this event today that we invite Olivia to be our speaker, my own personal reaction was, of course, she would be wonderful, but she is so busy. She is so heavily committed. It's extremely unlikely that we would be able to get her, but let's try. I am so glad we tried. Thank you. You honor us.
Thank you so much.
In the opening, the image was so eloquently given of women and men walking forward together. You, Olivia, have given us a slightly more technologically advanced image of men and women riding together on a bicycle built for two. I look forward to whatever our means of transportation, women and men proceeding together. I said I would thank you twice. First, on behalf of McLaughlin College, of which I am the master, I would like to give you this small token, which is a scarf of McLaughlin College, and you will notice that the symbol of McLaughlin College happens to be orange, which
And red, orange and red.
may have a little bit of political significance for you at the moment.
Wearing arrow.
And on behalf of York University, I would like to give you this, which we hope after you have perused it yourself, you keep in the waiting room of your office so that whether it's in Ottawa or in future here in Toronto, everyone will see things about York University. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And now there is an opportunity, I know, for Olivia to spend a bit of time signing copies of her book that are available for sale here. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Olivia.